guys, Bree Simulated here. Today we are back with the solid color challenge, and today we are doing the color white. So for this part of the solid color challenge, this video is quite a short one because I just make one little old lady, Whitney White. She's an elder and she has grey hair, white hair, and she is basically the sweetest old lady that you ever did meet. She reminds me a lot of my Disney Legacy Challenge heir, and I really felt at home with her and her house. Her house has got very cottagey vibes, so I do really love this little old lady, and I feel like in the neighbourhood she would get along with everyone, but she doesn't have any family herself to love her, so I think she does get quite lonely. She is family orientated, so I think she has always wanted a family and always wanted people to love, people to cherish, but she doesn't always have that. So she does enjoy music as well, though she doesn't play any musical instruments, and she is quite creative. So I think at home she would be always in her garden, always spending a lot of time with nature and just being herself. And even though she doesn't have anyone in her family, I feel like eventually, if I ever did play with her, I would have her find somebody. So here we have her little dog. Well, not little, he's big. And I just thought that having a bigger dog was kind of like juxtaposition because she's such an old lady. Like, you wouldn't imagine the typical old lady with a big dog because you'd think, oh, it'll jump up on her or whatever. But I feel like her and her dog get along really well, and they are just a cute little couple, and that they keep each other company. So with the house, it's got very cottagey vibes. I tried to make it quite small because I knew that it was just one person living there. She's a little old lady, so she didn't need a big, huge house. So the reason why this reminds me a lot of my Disney Legacy Challenge cottage is because I think it's the wallpaper and the fencing and the way that I have the porch. If you go check out my Disney Legacy Challenge, I might put an annotation on the screen now if I remember, but if you go check that out and have a look at the cottage that I built, it looked a lot like this when I first started, and I didn't realize that I was making it quite similar until it was furnished, I think. So by then it was too late to change the layout, and I feel like it's okay that it's kind of similar. I think that if any of you guys watch that series, you would definitely get the throwback feels with this build. So I think it is very cute and very quaint, and it very much suits her. And because it's kind of darker, like there's not very good lighting, it's quite just cottagey. Like, yeah, it's very warm, very welcoming, and there's no room to have guests over. Like, she doesn't have family members, she doesn't need a guest bedroom, she doesn't need that. Like, it's just for her and her dog, and I feel like she would very much suit this house. Like, I can't see many other people suiting this house than her. So even though this house is white, and it's a white solid color challenge, so it's quite bare and clean and plain and minimalistic. I imagine she's the kind of person who always wants everything to be clean and in place, and maybe that's part of the reason why she lives alone, because she doesn't want to live with anyone else, or she doesn't like the way that when she lives with other people, she can't have it be however she wants. But she has a very small kitchen, very quaint and little, because I imagine she's never really cooking big huge meals. It's usually just her, so she just has this very little kitchen that very much suits the cottage vibe, even though it is open plan. Like, I feel like, yeah, like open plan was fine for cottages most of the time. Like here in Australia, my grandma lives in a cottage, and the kitchen, living, dining's open plan because that all used to just be one room that they lived in, and then her bedrooms and whatnot are extensions that they've done since they bought the place. So it sort of reminded me of that. And I did get in a stereo because she loves music, so I thought she would always listen to music while she is in her kitchen and while she is sitting there in the living room. With the curtains, I really enjoyed making them quite classic. Usually with my curtains, I try and make them kind of modern because that's how I imagine curtains being in the real world, but I got these really old school curtains in, and I really love the curtain that goes over the top of the door that you saw just a moment ago, because I thought it was quite realistic that because the kitchen, living, dining is open and because the door goes straight into it, if she was sitting in her living room, she would probably pull that blind down and pull it down at night time so people can't see her sitting on her couch, or they can't see her walking from her bedroom to the toilet in her nightgown. She would pull that down at night time, and also just to stop any light or anything coming in. But it's quite a little cute, quaint house. And that's what I love about it, that it is quite cluttered in a way, like it's very lived in. You know, there's not a whole lot of room. You can't do cartwheels in the living room. You can't. You'd have to go outside, but that's fine because there's plenty of room outside. And in fact, I'm not sure. You'd have to count, but I think that the front yard is actually bigger in like footage, like cubes that we have in The Sims. I feel like it's bigger than the actual house, and that's fine. I'm like usually I would have placed this lot on a smaller lot, this house on a smaller lot, sorry, because there is a lot of backyard that is not being used. But I feel like that's fine because it's just the way the house is. So I have this very cute yard that I sort of split in half with a pathway, similar in my black color soul color challenge. But at the front, I just got a lot of wind chimes. I think I got more, didn't I? Or did I just get one? I think I got a wind chime and a bird feeder. And that little pig. I imagine that little pig is like her favourite thing in the world. Like she got it when she was with one of her friends, and her friend was like, "Do not buy that. That is hideous." And she was like, "I'm getting it." And just getting in the bin and post box early so I don't forget. And at the front, I wasn't quite sure what to do, but I think I ended up going with quite like a little seating area where she could sit at the front with her friends in her garden. And then I also got some gardening pots, and I just put some bushes in them for now, like that just were from the game. But I imagine that in game, if I were to play with this, I would definitely get her to plant a whole heap of starter herbs and flowers and vegetables and fruit and everything, because there's so many pot plants. I feel like she would always be in her garden outside, because in The Sims 4 it is always sunny and 22 because there's no season, so she'd always be outside in her garden. Getting some plants around the side to make it look more lived in and more cottagey, like she has a little garden. Here you can see me adding in those plants into the pots to make them look more full and not as boring and bland, because I feel like the pots just look so empty and sad when they don't have plants in them. But we are nearing the end of this. I hope that you enjoyed this quicker, shorter video, and I will definitely see you in the next part. So have a snazzy day, and I'll see you then. Bye guys.